At Capella University, you can learn at your own pace with our FlexPath learning format. Take 1 or 2 courses at a time and complete as many as you can in a 12-week billing session. With FlexPath, you can even finish the bachelor's degree you started in 22 months for $20,000. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu. Fastest 25% of students. Cost varies by pace, transfer credits, and other factors. Fees apply.
Acura's all-new ADX, a compact SUV that isn't just built for one thing. It's precision-crafted for everything. To escape the grind with available all-wheel drive. To go with your flow with available Google built-in.
Hey Google, turn it up.
Okay, turning up the volume. And crafted to be heard with an available Bang & Olufsen premium sound system. The all-new Acura ADX, crafted to match your energy. Acura, precision-crafted performance.
Take your vibes on go.
Google is a trademark of Google LLC.
Always look to the sky. The Dr. Sky Experience is on the air. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. 6 minutes after the hour. Thank you as we move into your weekend for joining us on the Dr. Sky Experience. I'm your night bird on the highway to the heavens and do appreciate the comments that we get. If you'd like to, of course, email me, it's simply DRSKY, Dr. Sky at WABCRadio.com. And just in case you have folks out there that want to hear a repeat of this particular show and all other podcasts that we do with the Dr. Sky Experience, it's simple. Simply go to WABCRadio.com or RedAppleAudioNetworks.com. As we continue on this Mother's Day weekend, ladies and gentlemen, I thought it very appropriate for this particular hour. I'm sure you'll join me in what I consider to be a tribute not only to our American military, in this particular case, a gentleman who's flown with the United States Marine Corps, not a retired man in the Marine Corps, but always a Marine, and for those that served our country, and, by the way, for all the mothers out there that also made a sacrifice when their husbands and loved ones were away fighting wars, they themselves were the singular person raising children. As we talk a tribute to Mother's Day, who could say it better than Rudyard Kipling, as he quoted, and I repeat, God could not be everywhere, and therefore he made mothers, end quote. Our special guest of this particular hour is Don Eggspuehler. Who is he? He wrote a book called Letters to Mom, from his experiences in the Marine Corps, boot camp, flight school, Vietnam, from 1969 to 1972. He flew one of the most iconic aircraft. For those of you out there that know military aviation, for those of you that do not, the Grumman A-6 Intruder. With that, I'd like to welcome our special guest, Don Eggspuehler. Thank you for joining us as you're in some location in Texas. Good morning to you, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Dr. Scott. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, Don, I appreciate you, and believe me, folks, this story I think is so apropos, not only for those who served our country. In your particular case, we'll talk about some of the details, but a book entitled Letters to Mom. Tell us the reason for the book. It's pretty self-evident, but tell us this experience, because I want to share it as we move into Mother's Day weekend.
Well, it was a fairly simple thing, actually. We had been living with the Vietnam War for 10 years at this point when I was graduating from college. And I got my draft notice on the day I graduated from college in 1969. So I had 30 days to make up my mind if I was going to go into the Army and I'd already got my pilot's license at Ohio State. So I thought, well, I've got a degree now and I've got a pilot's license, so maybe I can get into a flight program. And that happened with the Marine Corps. And I really thought when I joined the Marines that, you know, another 2-3 years of flight school and this war will be over, because they were already in the Paris peace talks at this point.
Exactly.
So again, it was one of those things that I said to my mom that, hey, Mom, she said, you better write me almost every day. And I said, I will. I'll keep you up to date on what's going on. But the whole thing was just to make her feel a little bit more at ease, because at this point, everybody was pretty well upset about Vietnam and knew it was, it'd been going on for 10 years. And just everybody wanted it to end. So that's what it started. I started writing her letters regularly while I was at boot camp, and then all the way through flight school, and especially when I went overseas, because I just couldn't just call her on the phone. Had to do it through letters and tapes and so forth.
Yes,
and,
that's the power of love, and we're going to exemplify that here. If you don't mind, sir, I'm going to take the liberty of reading this in your book, and it's dedicated, let me go ahead and pronounce this properly, a dedication to your mom, Eleanor Joan Eggspuehler. Beautiful mom, and obviously here, sir, this is the letter that, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and read because it's very powerful, and it holds a lot of emotion. Dated May 26, 1979. Dear Mom, this will probably be the last letter that I ever write to you. As you know, this book is a collection of the letters and tapes that I sent to you while I was in the Marines. You saved them all, and for 6 years you said that you were going to read them again someday. I'm sorry. I only got the first 3 sections edited and rewritten in time for you to read, but I'll finish them all and dedicate them to your memory. After today, Mom, I can't communicate with you by letters, tapes, telephone, or face-to-face anymore. But now I feel that I can talk to you anytime and any place. We will all miss you very much, Mom, and wish you peace. Love, Don. How beautiful is that, my friend? That is incredible. So it's a very powerful story. Yeah.
Well, the funny thing about that is it was 6 years after I had come back home, and I'm married now and have a couple of daughters, and I went up to visit her because she had cancer, and I knew it might be one of the last times she got to see the grandchildren. And when I was up there, I said, by the way, Mom, did you ever save any of those letters from Vietnam? And she says, oh, yeah, I've got them all. They're up in the attic. And I'm going to get them down and read them again. And I said, no, you're not. You're not going to do that. And I said, let me take them back to Dallas because I'd love to read them. And I got some closure reading the letters again because I'd always had a guilt complex about coming back from Vietnam without any injuries. And we lost 7 guys in my squadron that were shot down. So I started reading through the letters, and I thought, wow, I'm going to put these first of all, in chronological order. And I thought I'd just make a scrapbook for her. But a lot of them were handwritten, and some of them were tapes. And so I said, I'm going to just take a funny story out of each letter and type it up and put this in a book for her. And I gave it to her as a Christmas present. And I'm really glad I did because she passed away about 6 months later.
Oh, wow.
But it was one of the best presents I ever gave to her.
Well, that's a tribute, obviously, not only just on Mother's Day, but for all the people out there, the connection that we, of course, want to bring together on these airwaves, one of the most powerful stations in the world, is the power of love that comes through at this time of year, or as that should, as we talk about moms. And I mentioned this before. I don't know if you heard this as the intro, and I'm not reading this. I'm just talking this from my heart, that it's not only a dedication to all the mothers out there for the sacrifice that they made raising children, but what about the mothers who are married to people like yourself that are all away fighting wars? I don't know what that's like. I'm not a mother, but I can only go back to my mother's story. She didn't go through that, as my father was not in the military. But it's a tribute, obviously, and I want to give that big shout out here on this radio station to those that we love. But this is even, how do I say this? I don't know if you're aware of this, Don, but we have another proud Marine here on this radio station, Talk Radio 77 WABC, Greg Kelly, who's also, I never say retired, that's a terrible word in the military. They're always what they are. Another proud Marine who was a Harrier pilot, and that's another amazing story that I'm sure he could tell better than I could do justice to right now. But no, talk a little bit more about this because, that gives us what? That gives us this eternal feeling of love that goes well beyond the lifespan that we all have here, and that's a beautiful tribute, Don. So we appreciate you coming on here. And I know it's a little early in your time zone, but hey, it's never too early to talk about those we love, right?
Oh, that's true. And I did. I came from a real close family. I was the oldest of 5 kids. And again, we were a very tight-knit group coming from a small community in Iowa Falls, Iowa. Mm-hmm. And I had gone away to college at Ohio State. But, when you're away just a couple states away, you can always talk on the phone. So you don't need to write letters. But the military was different, and I'm so glad now that she saved those letters, first of all, because because I really got some closure going back through them. And, it's funny. After she passed away, I had this book, this manuscript in my closet for 45 years.
Yes.
And I got it out and I reread it again, and I thought, wow, I'll bet some other guys that went through this or their parents went through this might get some closure from reading these letters. And so that's why I went ahead and published it. And I've really gotten some good feedback from a lot of guys that were over there. Many of them, many years before I had to go to Vietnam. They all had that same feeling about love for their parents and their siblings back home.
No, you sure exemplify it here today and this morning. But, we're going to talk about your life here because also for many people out there that are aviation fans, we're going to shift gears a little with You're Okay. That, how did you get started to go into the Marine Corps? Was it by choice or was it just by, hey, that draft number came and, oh boy, here I go, I show up and I'm on the bus and they shave my head and the rest is what?
Yeah,
how did you get into the Marine Corps?
That's the choice you have at that point. When you get drafted, and most people don't understand the draft like we did back then, but you got 30 days and you report to the Army, and if you're a private, you're going to get about 6 months training and you find yourself in the jungles with a rifle in your hand. So I said, I want to at least do something in the military that I enjoy, and I enjoyed flying. And so I was lucky enough now that I had a college degree to get into an officer program and into a flight program. And again, I didn't think that I was ever going to have to go to Vietnam because 2 more years of flight school and another squadron. But I'll be darned. 3 years later, our whole squadron was moved from Iwakuni, Japan, into Thailand to fly missions every day. We were in the DMZ area primarily.
And we're going to get into that, Don, here in this show because, I'm a big fan of aviation. I was in the Army, United States Army for a short time, but not a pilot. And I just want to highlight this. I mean, you're the guy who was the driver. You sit side by side in this A6 Intruder manufactured by the Grumman Aircraft Corporation, an airplane that retired sadly back in 1997. But many would say and not argue that it was replaced with the FA-18 jet fighters that we see today, protecting America. But then let's talk about from the human side of that. You go into the Marine Corps, and obviously you have this college degree. And what was that like? I mean, the excitement must be overwhelming when you're chosen to become a pilot. What's flight school like for people like yourself? And before you answer, we may have a bunch of listeners out there who also have questions about the military aviation. And the number here, always for you, and ladies and gentlemen, calling wherever you're listening, 1-800-848-9222 to share in the story of Don Eggspuehler, always a Marine Corps, boot camp, flight school, Vietnam, 1969 to 1972. His great tribute to his mom, obviously during the Mother's Day period. Why can't it always be every day letters to mom? What's it like? I mean, it must be exhilaration when you go, wow, I've been selected to fly these birds. Talk about that.
Well, it was. And again, I was lucky in that I had been through a lot of this training of, understanding navigation and aeronautical charts and just a lot of the flight, jargon that you learn while you're going through flight training. So I had been through this before, and it was much more intense and much more professional, obviously, with the Marine Corps. And they do all their flight training through the Navy, the Navy flight schools. And most people think of the Marine pilots as just helicopter pilots, and probably about 98% of the pilots in the Marine Corps were helicopter pilots. They're in there for close air support for the Marines on the ground. But a small percentage are flying jets and dropping bombs or other close air support for Marines. And
you see all the Marine Corps during Vietnam, as you know, sir, with the F-4 Phantoms and the whole paint scheme.
Oh, yeah.
The camo paint scheme and the heavy load of weapons on there. We know a little bit about these. I'm not a pilot, so I don't come across always honest and always defer to the people who are, and those that, of course, will be. It's great. Your story, of course, I'm sure it is inspirational to so many of the young people today that want to join not only the Space Force, but as we talk here today with you about the Marine Corps and other great branches of the United States military. But this aircraft that you're flying, I mean, I'm doing all this research here, and I want to let the people know I've sent it to you. My brother, Joe Cates, is obviously very much involved in the photo side of the aviation world. So here, folks, if you're interested in military aviation, I know, Don, you gave it a thumbs up. Go to this website, photorecon.net, photorecon.net. I know you told me you enjoyed it. It's a military compilation of military aircraft and all air shows around the world and the nation. And a lot of people who never get a lot of credit. So with that website, Don, I know you enjoyed it also. At least that's what you told me, right?
Yes, yeah, it was. It was very informative and lots of great pictures, obviously.
Let's talk. Yeah, go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Did you have a...
Well, here we go with the A6 Intruder. I mean, this aircraft, in case people don't know, this is so amazing. So after you're gutting out of flight school, you're talking about being attached to a flight wing, and I want to talk about that. It's VMA 533, the Hawks. And the motto of that flight squadron in Latin is In Hoc Signo Vinces, or Vinces, and it stands for what? By this sign, conquer. So every flight wing, military-wise, has their motto, their goal, and such. But this is amazing. Talk about VMA 533 and the time you're there in the Hawks. I mean, this is an amazing squadron, which is an all-weather fighter. In case people don't know this, you're flying missions that you could fly in, pardon my language, the crappiest of weather to deliver your ordnance. What's that feeling like to fly this machine? It must be amazing.
Well, it really was. It was very sophisticated for its time because it had all the capabilities to, and very rudimentary computers and very good radars. So you could fly at night or you could fly in bad weather and still drop bombs pretty precisely on target. Now, again, our missions were kind of half and half at first. We were flying day missions that were visual bombing raids in support of the troops, but we were the only aircraft at that time that could fly night missions into North Vietnam, and that was one of our primary objectives, was to stop the trucks and tanks and so forth that were going down the Ho Chi Minh Trail and down from North Vietnam into South Vietnam. So it was those missions were completely radio silent. Once you went into North Vietnam, you were on your own. You didn't have any other radio contact with anybody because
that's amazing.
They couldn't track you. So, but the problem there is you're also flying at a lower altitude, around probably 3,000 feet, and going down the roads. And they got smart to this after a while. They'd hear us fly over, and so they just radio down the road to their buddies, and who would just start shooting bullets straight up in the air. And
amazing.
That's how a lot of our guys got hit. There was no warning, not like a SAM missile or something like that. So it was, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, you described this aircraft, and we're going to get into deep things about the missions of what you can talk about, because if I'm correct here, see if I have my information correct from research, you could carry more bomb loads than any other aircraft other than a B-52. So that aircraft, sadly or funny in many ways to your own Marine pilots, was called what? Double Ugly, Drumstick, or the Iron Tadpole. Am I right? That's what some of them called your A6 Intruder. And Don, just in case people don't know or have not seen the movie and they're wondering, scratching their head, why is Dr. Sky giving such credibility, such airtime to such an amazing mission? Because you know why? Because it's all about the freedom that every one of us deserves here in a very horrible time. I'm not taking sides to say why these wars should have happened. Of course, they never should have. But this A6 is just incredible. Don, the movie is Flight of the Intruder, in case people are wondering, what are we talking about, right? I don't know,
yeah.
In a movie about the
airport. It was a good airframe. It really was a strong aircraft built to land on carriers. I didn't have to land on carriers, thank goodness. But it also would carry 28 500-pound bombs and several thousand pounds of fuel. So it had about, you could fly 4-hour missions in that thing and have enough fuel. And 28 500-pound bombs, we'd usually make 4 or 5 runs on a target, and we'd always have a wingman that would be running right behind us, so we could watch to make sure they didn't take fire behind them and that they couldn't see or something like that.
Yeah, and the man behind the curtain told me something. You could carry 30 bombs if you took the landing gear doors off.
Most of the time we had like 18 or something like that because
right.
You'd usually have a couple of drop tanks that were for fuel, extra fuel. So that took away a few of the bombs, but they were a pretty lethal machine.
That's it. And, it is on the lighter side, though. When I was talking to an old gentleman who was higher in the rank, he wasn't way up there like a general or something in the Marine Corps. He looked at me and he goes, "Young man," he goes, "you ever serve your country?" And I said, "I was in the Army, sir, for a short time." And he looked at me and he said, "Yeah." He goes, "You know what Army stood for?" And I go, "What's that, sir?" And he says, "Ain't ready for Marines yet." Wow. What a blow off I got, huh? Folks, if you have questions, talking on the serious side, here's Don Eggspuehler. He, of course, a Marine pilot, not a retired Marine, always a Marine. Semper Fi to them and to all those that serve our country in their own mottos for each branch of the service. We're talking about his letters to Mom. Significant. Why? Because of this beautiful time and we celebrate the love of our mothers, whether they're living or they've passed on to the infinite. His story, of course, letters to Mom, his Marine Corps time, boot camp, flight school, Vietnam. He, of course, dedicates his book, and his book, of course, dedicated to the memory of his mother, Eleanor Joan Eggspuehler. Interesting. So going back to the airplane here, it's like you're doing these missions. I mean, you have these briefings, and you have people help load up the bomb missions, and you never know. I mean, a lot of people never came back, right? They were shot down from ground fire or SAM missiles, which we'll talk about in the next half hour. There must be some nail-biting experiences right in the beginning.
Oh, no question. And like I said, those night missions, especially when you're in complete radio silence and it's the middle of the night, we're the only aircraft up there in the middle of the night. It was, if somebody got shot down, it was a problem because we wouldn't know about it right away. They just wouldn't come back. And in the daytime, there were so many helicopters and other airplanes in the air that if somebody got hit, it was known pretty quickly that they were in trouble or that somebody saw it and where they went down. But not so at night. So that was a lot scarier missions flying.
Well, here's a technical question on the A6 Intruder. I mean, you were in there. Is it a conducive thing? I mean, is it better that they designed it that way, that the pilots are sitting side by side instead of a front and back? Like in many other aircraft, they have a person in the back, the radar wizzo, as they call them. I mean, is that that's the way they built it? But obviously, it was a better configuration than sitting front and back.
I think in this case it was because again, it's kind of like on an airliner. You got a pilot and co-pilot right there.
Yes,
you're both working as a team, and it's so amazing that after you fly together for a long period of time, you almost don't even need to talk to each other. You know what the other guy's going to do, and we're busy. You're both setting up the weapon systems, the radars, the computers, getting the targets locked on, and the bombs automatically releasing by the computer. And that determines, your altitude, your airspeed, the ballistics of the bomb, and the moving target that you're going after, which was a truck or something on the road. My goodness, a lot of sophistication clear back in 1970s that we had. It really was. It was a pretty amazing airplane.
No, you bet. And obviously retired, as we mentioned before, around 1997. Replaced what? By the F-18 fighter, of course. We see them at all different naval air stations around there, and, of course, carriers and so many things like that. Don, we are coming up on the hard break, as they call it in radio, and more with you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to get in the conversation, maybe you're someone in the military who served in the Marine Corps or the Navy or any of the branches of the service and have an interest not only in the topic of dedication to our mothers for this particular weekend, appropriate Mother's Day weekend. Don Eggspuehler is our guest. We'll continue with him on the other side of these announcements here on the Dr. Sky Experience, where? Here on Talk Radio 77 WABC.
ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track. And ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
In golf, precision is everything, on and off the course. PGA of America chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business for smooth operations and seamless transactions. Together, we enhance ticketing and concessions for better fan experiences from gate to green. This is pro-level efficiency. This is PGA of America with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
Impact confirmed. The Slayer has been activated.
Demonic threat level increasing.
Hold the line!
All the power of hell cowering before one man.
id Software presents Doom, The Dark Ages. Available now on Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC.
Rated M for mature.
The Dr. Sky Experience is on the air. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
Hi, this is Shirley MacLaine. I am having a wonderful time talking to Dr. Sky. Since I've spent a lot of my time looking up, I love to discuss what is underneath. And always remember to keep your eyes to the sky.
All that I am, or hope to be, I owe to my angel mother. You're my first best friend. We continue here in the Dr. Sky Experience, 31 minutes after the hour. Our special guest, kind of a dual purpose in our interview today and this morning, with our friend, Don Eggspuehler, always a Marine. His book, Letters to Mom, his time in the Marine Corps, boot camp, flight school, Vietnam, 1969 to 1972. Of course, a book dedicated to the memory of his mother, as of course we remember our mothers, both living and in the infinite. We continue, Don. Thank you for being with us. Let's go to the callers here. They light up the phone lines, and we go to the front of the line with them. Good morning to Robert. Robert, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Your comment to Don, or your question?
Oh, good morning, gentlemen. Thank you, Don. I really appreciate your service, and good you made it back together in one piece. And great success. Great success. Do you have any information or experience you could share about the F-111 with the TFR?
Well, I don't know anything really about the F-111s, and that was all in the Air Force. Basically, the Marines just had F-4s and A-6s back when I was flying. So actually, the two other squadrons that went in with us into Nampong, Thailand, were F-4 squadrons. So we got to know those guys pretty well. And they were faster, but they couldn't carry as many bombs. So, and they couldn't fly night missions like we could. So it was an interesting
Did you ever
time.
fly the F-105 Thud?
No, that's another Air Force plane, and
that's a big one too, Don. That's a big
one too. Yeah, actually, the F-111 was a good sized airplane as well. Meant for long range bombing missions. But,
well, gentlemen, I have a quick story, and sorry to jump in on what Don is telling us, but Robert, this is interesting. Here's a funny story. I think Don will get a kick out of it. A long, long time ago, in another lifetime, I was up in Plattsburgh, New York, and there was this Air Force base, right, Robert and Don? So I'm in a Howard Johnson's hotel. Remember how long ago that was, right? And I'm lying in bed. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I kid you not, I was knocked out of bed by the vibration. This is no joke. And as I looked out the front of the hotel, guess what it was? An F-111 firing those big afterburners. I couldn't believe how noisy that thing was. That was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine that. Robert, were you in the military? Tell us your story.
Oh, no. I was too young or too old. I was in between all the time, so never got to do it. Unless I would have been enlisted as a volunteer.
Well, gentlemen, we had another quick story from our Aviation Chronicles. We were covering the story of the Air Force Thunderbirds for years, and we got to talk to an old gentleman who was a retired general in the Air Force. We should say always in the Air Force. But he was telling us he was part of the Thunderbird squadron when they flew them as they fly those jets together like the F-16 for the performances. And he was saying that his airplane was so big that when he came down on the runway, he dragged the tail of that thing and actually set it on the tail on fire. And I'm not supposed to tell you who the name of that was, but he caught a hell for tail dragging that thing. So that's interesting. So, no, seriously, Robert, I appreciate you. You seem to know a lot about aircraft, so thanks for joining us. That's awesome.
Yes, I've been in the manufacturing end of the aerospace industry, and that was my contribution to our national defense.
Well, thank you, and God bless you, because without you, they wouldn't have a tail for the airplane to drag or anything to make it fly. So thank you, sir, for your time.
That's right.
Don, this is interesting. It gets even more interesting as we talk about this. I know to some out there, they may take exception and go, oh, we were bombing people and nobody likes war, but hey, we have our instructions, right or wrong on this. We know that this particular event happened. It's history. But in that particular mission, if you can describe it, you're flying, as you said, some day missions and some night missions into territory that's unfriendly to you. You have to be very careful. So who is in the airplane? Is the pilot, you're the command in the left or the right side? Tell us about that. Who's in charge for the airplane and who's in charge for the avionics?
No question, the pilot's in command of the airplane. And,
okay.
And again, there was so much avionics involved and electronic countermeasures and weapon systems available that, it kept both people real busy, as I said. I was just going to say the day missions, Robert just mentioned the Air Force. We were very reliant on the Air Force helping us acquire our targets and go in and mark them with smoke rockets. They had OV-10s back then, which is a dual prop, turboprop, acrobatic airplane, and they'd be right down on the treetops. And these guys were called FACs, or forward air controllers.
Right.
And they would bring us in, and we would rendezvous with them, and then they would roll in on the target and tell us if it was a tank or whatever, and then they'd put a smoke rocket on it. And then they'd tell us where friendlies, if there were any friendlies involved, and what the winds were, and so forth. So they would call our what's called BDA, or bomb damage accrued, after each run. And as we pulled off the target, our wingman would come in and drop their load, and he'd be giving us directions the whole time on these day missions, because he could see what damage we were doing and if we hit the target or not. And again, we didn't have that on the night missions. You're by yourself on the night missions. But,
yeah, you're right. The OV-10 Broncos, we've seen them in many air shows and restoration airplane. That's an amazing plane. I wouldn't even know how to begin to fly it. And then the little tiny guy who's up there, many people who may know their aviation, the little tiny airplane called the Bird Dog, that was just a little single engine plane that you'd see probably at some little airports, but it was used as a forward observer, if I'm correct.
Right, yeah. But I'll tell you, those guys, talk about brave. Those Air Force pilots right down on the treetops, just like the helicopters, except, they're getting shot at by the people that they're marking the targets. And so a lot of those guys got hit as well. They're right down there in the action. And we're rolling in usually from about 12,000 feet and in a dive bomb pattern, about a 30 to 45 degree dive angle, and coming in, and we drop pickle the bombs at about 6,000 feet and pull off in a 4G pull. So again, you're pointed right at the target, the bombs keep going, and we pull off, and then again, it depends on how accurate the run was to find out from the FAC if you'd hit the target or not. But
yes.
Yeah,
John, you must have had good. You must have had a good stomach and no Dramamine available. I mean, you're pulling how many G's in some of these? I mean, that's incredible. That's just wild.
Most of the time, it was a 4 to 6G environment, and that's just for a few seconds at a time. And again, you're jinking off the target. In other words, you're going back and forth so that you're not an easy target to hit. Because that's when you're the most vulnerable. It's when you're at the bottom of of the run, you're pulling off, you're the closest to them, and that's when they would try to hit you, is right after you release the bomb. So, but most of the pilots and people back then were used to pulling G's, and you have a G suit that inflates when you start pulling G's, and that keeps the blood from pooling down in your legs. It keeps it more up into your body cavity and keeps you from blacking out. We know all too well about what you're saying. I was given an opportunity to fly backseat in an F-16 at a Luke Air Force Base, and I decided not to do it. But please don't make fun of me, folks. The reason is my brother, who's 13 years younger than I, he jumped at the chance like, he was going wild. But he was in a back mission where they simulated over the Barry Goldwater range here in Arizona, both men and, male and female pilots doing simulated, combat missions. And he's saying, my goodness, they were pulling 8 and 9 Gs in there. You know what I said? Thank God I didn't go. That was my way of saying it. Sorry, folks, that wasn't for me. Okay, let's talk this way. We got so many people that want to talk to our special guest here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go to Al. Good morning, Al. Thank you for being on the Dr. Sky Experience. How are you this morning?
Hey, Dr. Sky, another great show, and I'm enjoying hearing your guest. And thank you for his service, and happy Mother's Day to both of you guys, okay?
Thank you.
I had a question. You're welcome. I had a question. A couple things. By any chance, were you aware of Senator McCain? He had an incident on one of those carriers. I think he was an admiral's son. And did you ever hear of a C-130 landing? I think it was on the Forrestal. I mean, you would never think a plane that big could land.
Now, by the time we were in Vietnam, Senator McCain had been shot down several years before that. He was actually in an A-6 as well. But he was a POW, I think, for almost 5 or 6 years, if I'm not mistaken. And what a hero that guy was, because he was the son of a very prominent military officer, and probably could have gotten special treatment, but he didn't want it. He didn't take it. And he was injured, too, when he ejected. So he had a bunch of broken bones. And, again, he wouldn't give in to them. So I held the highest regard for Senator McCain. He's just an amazing guy.
Al, your follow-up before we go to the break here. Please comment if you choose to.
I had one to know, did he ever hear anything about 100 people getting killed in an incident with McCain when he landed on one of the carriers? And also, did he ever hear of a C-130, a plane that large, actually doing carrier landings before the Greyhound got there?
Gosh, I don't know much about that. I really don't. I'm sorry. But I know I rode in a lot of C-130s. It's like a big box car, and they were powerful for carrying a lot of freight and weapons and so forth from one place to another.
Al, I do think there was a C-130 that did land on a carrier, and I know my own experience. We were flown out from Naval Air Station San Diego on the COD, on the gray, the gray airplane, I guess the mail plane as we would call it. We did a carrier landing, and I'll tell you one thing, that was unbelievable when they boosted our you-know-whats off the deck on that catapult. That's an experience that I'll never forget. But Al, thank you for joining us all the time here, and see how we get these great guests, and obviously in salute to his mom and other mothers, his book, of course, which we're really highlighting here, Letters to Mom, Don Eggspuehler's dedication to his mother, writing to her. Of course, our hearts go out to all those folks that gave their lives in defense of America's freedom. And this is an important story about American exceptionalism, the love of our mothers, those that we do truly love, and people who served our country. So, Al, thank you for joining us. We do appreciate it. And, Don, we'll be right back. We have another commercial announcement here and a break, and we'll be right back here on the Dr. Sky Experience.
Shopping is hard, right? But I found a better way. Stitch Fix online personal styling makes it easy. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want. No subscription required. And he sends just for me pieces, plus outfit recommendations and styling tips. I keep what works and send back the rest. It's so easy. Make style easy. Get started today at stitchfix.com/Spotify. That's stitchfix.com/Spotify.
The basketball playoffs are here on Prize Picks, the best place to cash in on the action. The app is simple. Pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code FIELD, that's code FIELD, and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code FIELD on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. Win or lose, you'll get $50 for just playing. Guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader, like that car right in your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.
Choosing a bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drink that's all flavor and just 100 calories? Easy. Choosing between creamy vanilla, double chocolate, and sea salt caramel flavors? A little harder. Try the delicious new Starbucks Frappuccino light drinks. Look for them wherever you buy groceries. Start with Starbucks coffee.
The Dr. Sky Experience is on the air. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
Hi, this is Bill Mooney from Lost in Space and Babylon 5, The Twilight Zone, etc. But what's more important than that is you're listening to the Dr. Sky Show. And that's a good thing, a real good thing.
When you look into your mother's eyes, you know that is the purest love that you can find. 47 minutes after the hour, Don Eggspuehler, always a Marine. His book, Letters to Mom, as we talk with him and you, ladies and gentlemen, as we wrap up this particular hour. Let's say good morning to Joaquin. Your question or comment to our guest. Joaquin, are you there?
There's the ding. Good day to you, gentlemen. You know, it's interesting. Actually, at the age of 17, I myself enlisted in the Marine Corps, but I wound up not going because I enlisted in the summertime and delayed, and I got shot deer hunting the day after Thanksgiving.
Oh, no.
Anyway, yeah. So anyway, I really want to thank you, Don, for your service. You know, and the Vietnam War is just one of those things that, you know, so many guys were just so underappreciated. And whenever the topic comes up, of course, I always like to bring up a man, retired Admiral James Bond Stockdale, Ross Perot's running mate. That guy, you know, his story is quite incredible.
Yes, it is.
What happened to him after he was shot down, and he was awarded the Medal of Honor for it. But, you know, I've known a lot of guys who went to Vietnam, and the vast majority of the ones that I knew had said that they almost felt that they could have won the war if they were allowed to. And on the same token, I also had some friends in college that were actually Vietnamese, and they escaped the fall of Saigon. They escaped the communists, you know. So it's a very interesting and a heart-tugging story all the way around.
Sure is.
Well,
absolutely. Joaquin, I appreciate your time. Don, please go ahead.
I agree with you, Joaquin, in that I think a lot of guys really felt that they weren't appreciated when we came back. And again, you can understand it because it had been going on for so long, and they've been watching it on TV every day, watching our boys get shot up and carried off on stretchers on helicopters and so forth. So it was a sad time that for a lot of Vietnam veterans, and that's kind of why I wrote this book. I wrote the book initially just for my mom to keep her from worrying too much. But the reason I published it was for other people that have, or especially mothers and so forth, or older people that had sons that had to go fight in Vietnam. And it was a heart-tugging time, like you said. One of the things I did want to mention is that at the very end of our tour, you said that you thought we could have won the war if we really wanted to. You're absolutely right, because, I mean, with all the air power we had, if we had just kept up the bombing on Hanoi like we did that Christmas.
Operation Linebacker, right?
They would have, yeah, they would have given up right away on this war. We could have won it in a month, I think. But the politics at the time, we were playing defense. all the time. And, you can't win a game playing defense the whole time.
No,
and,
you cannot.
You got to go on the offense.
Joaquin, thank you. I'm sorry to cut you guys short here, but I want to try to get in as many callers as possible. And Don, excuse me for jumping in here. Thank you, Joaquin, for your commentary about our military and those that served. Let's say good morning to Dave in Arizona. Dave, good morning. You're on with Don Eggspuehler.
Hey, good morning, Semper Fi Marine. Hey, out here in Tucson, we have the Boneyard, and there's some A6s out there. It's a graveyard for aircraft. It's east of Tucson, and now I'm retired military. I retired in '95, and they called me back in 2003. They sent me to Yuma, and my goodness, man, you think it's hot here in Tucson? It's 10 degrees hotter in Yuma, and I got a chance to go to the Marine Corps Air Station and work with the Marines. They're good men, and and I was a paratrooper in the military. And you referenced the boxcar. That's a C-123, C-130 Hercules. I mean, I jumped out of many C-130s, 141s, and ain't nothing like jumping out of a perfectly good airplane.
You got it, Dave. It's a gathering of eagles here, and we salute all the military. God bless you out there in my state, in Arizona. Dave, it was 102 today, and many people may find that a little unusual. But here in Arizona, right, Dave, we know it's just another day. There you go. Don, isn't that a nice tribute there? There you go.
Yeah, it really was. One thing I was going to try and mention is that toward the end of my book, and that over the Christmas, Bob Hope made a visit to our base in the middle of the jungle in Thailand. And he brought Red Fox and Miss World and Lola Falana and his wife, Dolores. And at this point, Bob Hope had gone, I think, to every year of the Vietnam War, had gone over to be with the troops. And he came that year for us. And I'll tell you that was probably one of the most deeply moving shows and performers I've ever seen in my life. And I think all the guys there would probably say the same thing. Amazing. He was just an amazing man.
I would love to have met him, and that would have been an amazing experience to boost the morale of people that are so far from home and missing their loved ones. That's amazing. It really is. Yeah, I got one more for you before we go to the top here, and that's the sad conclusion of this hour, but hopefully we'll do this again. In a quick encapsulation, you're flying. And no quick answer can do justice, but here it is. You're flying, and you're hearing tones, and that's the awesome and horrible thing called a SAM missile. That must be a nerve-wrenching experience to figure out that something's lighting you up and could blow you out of the sky, the SAM. Talk about it.
Oh, yeah. And, again, we were flying around the DMZ area, so there weren't near as many SAMs there as there were up at the Hanoi locations, but we had electronic gear that would tell us if there was a SAM locking on us, and red lights were going on all over the cockpit with in your ear it's going doo 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 like that. Yeah. And then it really starts going crazy when it really does lock on you, and you can see if they fired it or not. And they weren't as accurate back then. They weren't near as accurate as they are today. But the way to avoid them was basically to point the airplane right at it and fly right at it for a few seconds if you could, and then pull away so it couldn't make the adjustments.
That's amazing.
It is a scary thing.
And that's what happened to Francis Powers when he was shot down May 1st, obviously in a much higher altitude aircraft that many people know about, the U-2 story. That's amazing how those missiles, rather crude, I guess, in their technology, but they sure the hell worked, right, when they needed to. That's a sad story. Yeah. How many? But give us the quick synopsis.
Shot down most of the B-52s. The SAMs around Hanoi during that Christmas bombing. I think we lost something like 50 B-52s within about a 2-month period there. But they did enough damage that North Vietnam finally said, okay, we'll go to the peace table and we'll talk and we'll release POWs. And then we left. And what did they do? They just came right in and took over the country after that.
Yes.
So,
and I read about the A6 too, as we wrap it up here, that there was some incidents, and maybe not as many, but God forbid it happened at all, and it did, premature bomb detonations on some missions. When the bomb was released, somehow, I don't know, I'm not in that area, that the airplane was actually destroyed by a shorter premature bomb detonation. That's horrible. You're trying to drop the bomb. It's 500 pounds. You want it to get down to the target, not underneath your plane.
Well, and again, if you're carrying 28 500-pound bombs, they have a propeller on the front of the bomb that has a pin going through it when it's sitting on the airplane, so that keeps it from arming. But as soon as it's released from the plane, that pin pulls out and it starts spinning that propeller, and then it's armed. And so when it hits the ground, it explodes. Again, you always have the possibility that somebody that was hanging those bombs on the wing missed getting that pin in there properly or something, and there are accidents that happen. I mean, we've seen a couple F-18s just in the last couple of weeks run off the carriers out there in the Red Sea because, there are mistakes that are made, and it's a very complex mission. So who knows? Again, that was always a possibility.
Well, Don, I want to thank you for being up, especially early. You're somewhere in the great state of Texas. We don't ask for your identity, location. But again, thank you for your service. Always a Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine, and every military person, no matter what branch of the service. When my time in the Army, anybody else that served, and also to our law enforcement out there, these are the stories we want to hear. But in this particular weekend, our reason for having you primarily is a salute to your mom, the book, Letters to Mom, your story, and the many letters that you've written to your mom. How do people get in touch with you? Just tell us. How do people get in touch with you?
Well, if they have interest in the book, it's on Amazon, and I have a website. It's called lifelessonsbooks.net. So lifelessonsbooks.net, it's got a bit about me in there and the books, and if you click on one of the books, like Letters to Mom, it'll take you right to Amazon to buy either the electronic version or the paperback or hardback. So that's probably the easiest way for them to find it on Amazon. Just from my
Don, again, I can't thank you enough, and I want to come and shake your hand someday and sit down there and drink a Texas Shiner beer with you. That would be an awesome experience.
I'd love that.
I'm not trying to give I'm not trying to give a free promo, but hey, when we were down there during the eclipse last year, we were down in the heart of, in the deep part of Texas. And I know that's awesome. It was a good time. We had a good time in Junction, Texas. I'm sure you know that place. There you go. We had a lot of fun. Don, thank you for your time. God bless you, and happy Mother's Day and Letters to Mom. That's why we had you. And long remembrance to all of our mothers living and that moved on to the infinite. We'll see you one day, but Don will be in touch. Thank you for your time, sir, to join us on the Dr. Sky Experience.
Hey, thank you, Dr. Sky. I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure. Folks, we always get great guests on the Dr. Sky Experience, as you tell us. And coming up next is Lionel here on Talk Radio 77 WABC as we transition him to be our next captain on this radio starship powerhouse. Lionel, thank you for the kind comments you made about this show. I appreciate you, brother, and all you ladies and gentlemen out there, we appreciate you. We'll be doing this again Saturday midnight to 2 a.m. Sunday. More extenuating interviews from the great realms of astronomy, space, aviation, and weather. And a special shout-out to Tony, who is our helmsman, who's navigating and pointing the power of this magnificent media powerhouse, Talk Radio 77 WABC, in your direction. Happy Mother's Day.